But the topic I was looking into recently is the five forces or the five powers. And this is a topic that is part of this teaching called the 7-point mind training. And this is from a book that was written over 900 years ago. And it's a, it's a, has 7 points. And I'm going to just talk a little bit about the fourth point. And it amazes me that somebody so long ago wrote this book, and that the thing that they did is in like 5 things, tried to put together everything that we do in our practice as a Buddhist. And I thought about some of our guests who are here today, and you might be wondering why your aunt or anybody would move to an abbey, and or what the heck are they doing? So in one way, this is one simple way to think about kind of what we do here, kind of the focus of our practice, because we have like 2 things, like 2 wings of a bird. We have things that are related to compassion, where we don't want people to suffer, and we just make that so large that we want to become a Buddha in order that we can help people not to suffer. And the other is what we call wisdom, where we want to know really the nature of reality. How do things really work? And we do that because we actually need to know that to get to the other one, to be able to help people, because it gets in the way. So these 5 things are actually these 5 forces or 5 powers. Kind of today I like the word forces more, because we have these 2 things we want to do. We want to be like so compassionate that we become a Buddha to alleviate suffering. And we want this wisdom. But we can utilize these 5 forces, these 5 parts of our mind to make that happen. And that's what's so beautiful about this, especially the first one, which is the force of motivation. So what we try to do with that is we try to be careful all the time. Like, am I doing something now from a bad motivation? Like my mind is under the control of, like, maybe I'm angry, or maybe I'm being greedy, or who knows, something not so good is going on. We try to be aware of that so that we aren't acting out at that time. It's kind of like a timeout. We try to put ourselves in timeout then, and we try to be aware in that way. And we also try to see, what am I doing with my body? What am I doing with my speech? And what am I doing with my mind? That will help me to reach my biggest goal, which is, I don't want people to suffer. So what can I do? I can become a Buddha so that I can help people not to suffer. That's kind of how we spend our time here, actually. But the other thing we do in terms of motivation, we start this at the very beginning of our day. Before we get out of bed, we think about 3 things. I think everybody here at the Abbey does this. We think, today, as much as possible, may I not harm anybody. And today, as much as possible, may I help people. And then today, as much as possible, may I keep these goals in mind, my long-term goals of what I want to do with my life, with my spiritual practice. So that's kind of what we're doing here. So that's the force of motivation. And this teaching was, like from this man named Chakawa, and he was alive in 1101 to 1175. And so that's a while ago. And his student wrote a book about this. And I had never read that before until this week. And the way he explains it is just like everything we've ever learned, which kind of is amazing. Can you imagine that somebody wrote something so long ago and we still have the same ideas today from 900 years ago? So his student, his name was Sei Chilbu Chuki Gyaltsen. What should we call him? How about Sei Chilbu? Because his name is so long. So what he said about this is about motivation. He said, you're like propelling yourself with a certain kind of intention. And you want to do this. You can actually make your thoughts go this way by deciding to do this. We can actually have a motivation and carry something out. We actually don't eat or drink this water unless we have the thought, I want to drink this water. I'm kind of motivated to do something. So we propel ourselves with our intentions. But this intention is like these 2 we were talking about. He said, from now until my full awakening, until I become a Buddha, I shall not be separated from these two awakening minds, these two goals that we had. And I won't stop doing this mind training. This mind training are these teachings that this whole book is about. Mind training are things where we take anything that happens to us, any experiences we have, and we use them to help ourselves become better people, better practitioners, and we use them on our spiritual path. So this is actually possible for us to do. And he also said something that I've heard many times since then, but I never knew that this came from way back when. He said, so think of this year, this month, this day, this hour, this minute, I'm going to do these things. And that is carried through all these 900 years. So we repeatedly do this. This is the force of motivation. And then the second thing is the force of acquaintance. We become familiar with things. We try to bring this to mind a lot, and we try to do it in a way where we're not distracted, but we're actually focusing on it. So we become acquainted with everything it takes to have to develop these qualities. And then the next one is the force of the white or the positive seed. And this is where it's a little bit like gardening. You can actually make yourself into something by what you do. So when you want to grow a plant, you plant seeds. And when you want to grow weeds, you plant weeds, right? But when you have a garden, you want to get rid of the weeds. So you have to get rid of some things, and you have to water and take care of other things. And that's actually what happens with how we become in life. We water certain things, certain seeds, and we try to get rid of other things that aren't, such wholesome qualities that we want to have. And so we do this in this practice. We do this in particular to develop these motivations that we have. This awakening mind is what we call it. And Se Chilbu talked about this primarily in between sessions. We try to do things that are wholesome and virtuous, and we try to not do things that aren't with our body, speech, and mind. And things where we're doing well, where we're kind of like already doing it, we try to keep that going. And where we haven't quite got it going yet, we try to get that going. We try to give rise to these kind of good qualities and enhance them. So that's the third thing, which is the power of the positive seed. Because we're planting seeds all the time. What we do with our life ends up kind of carrying on, and it matters. And then the fourth one is an interesting one called the force of destruction or eradication or repudiation. I kind of like destruction. But I looked up repudiate because I didn't really know what that meant. And it's also good. It means you're not going to accept something. You're not going to be associated with something. So this we do whenever we're really self-centered and that kind of thought is in our mind, we try to get rid of it. And this really is something that one of my, a teacher that I had when I was in Taiwan, he actually wrote a book called The Philosophy of Being Second. Like being number two. Instead of always being number one, I'm going to be number two. And he wrote a whole book about this because he wanted us to think about others more than we think about ourselves, which is not kind of usually what we do. So this is what you're trying to kind of destroy. You're trying to, me first, I'm always the first in line, I'm the best, all of that. We're trying to get rid of that on every level. And he actually says, the student of Chekoa actually says that every single one of our defects, every single one of our faults depends upon this kind of self-centered thought where we're the most important and we don't really think about others so much. And so he says, from now on, from here on, I shall abandon this self-centered thought whenever it comes up. And I'll recognize what it's based upon, which is kind of an ignorant mind. And seeing those as the enemy, something I don't want to be associated with, which is repudiation. That's my new word. You don't want to be associated with something. And then the last one is the power of aspiration. And aspiration is when you actually you focus on something and you take interest in it. And when we do that, And that gives us a lot of energy and a lot of enthusiasm to do things. So here, and this time, we're using something that we already have. We have the ability to be, to aspire to things, to take interest in things, to have energy for things, and we're actually using it for our practice in order to develop our good qualities and get rid of any things that are faults and problems. So the way that Se Chilbu said this, he said, from this moment until I have attained Buddhahood throughout all my lives, may I never be separated from the two awakening minds. Instead, may I train in them. May I know how to take all circumstances that befall me, whether positive or negative, into this training. And that's what this whole book is about. It's a book about mind training, which is this idea that we can use whatever happens in our lives and we can make it meaningful and useful and use it to become, reach our spiritual aspirations.